Frederic, Lord Leighton. The only British artist to have been made a peer of the realm, enjoyed great celebrity and international fame. His skills as a painter and sculptor, his charm, handsome appearance and broad artistic interests gave every impression of an ideal artist. For 18 years, Leighton served as the president of the Royal Academy. His talent, energy and commitment helped raise the profile of British art to new heights in the late 19th century. Born in 1830 in Scarborough, Yorkshire, Leighton came from a prosperous medical background. For the sake of his mother's health, the family moved to the continent when he was just 11 years old. Dr. Leighton had hoped his son might follow him into medicine, but visits to Europe's great cities and museums had a lasting impact on the young Frederic. He showed early artistic promise, and when the family finally settled in Frankfurt, Germany, Frederic enrolled at the art school.
My desire to be an artist dates as far back as my memory. My parents surrounded me with every facility to learn drawing, but strongly discountenanced the idea of my being an artist, unless I could be eminent in art.
After completing his training, Leighton moved to Rome in 1852, intent on painting the pictures which would launch his professional career. For his main subject, he chose an episode from Giorgio Vasari's Lives of the Artists, a collection of artists' biographies published in 1550, in which the painter Cimabue parades his latest picture through the streets of Florence, gathering a crowd of admiring onlookers. Leighton's huge canvas measured over 5 meters in length and featured over 40 figures. Sending such a large debut work to the Royal Academy was a statement of his confidence and ambition. The gamble paid off. Not only was Cimabue selected for exhibition, but Prince Albert persuaded Queen Victoria to buy it. In the wake of this royal patronage, the picture became a sensation. Overnight, from being almost entirely unknown, Leighton was acclaimed as the great hope for British art. After Cimabue, Leighton's art continued to reflect his deep appreciation and knowledge of the art of the past, stretching back through the Italian Renaissance and into antiquity. As his career progressed, his ambitious and technically demanding exhibition paintings drew increasingly on classical subjects. In addition to these pictures, he contributed to the emerging aesthetic movement, creating paintings concerned with formal beauty rather than narrative drama, as well as completing portrait commissions and painting landscape studies for relaxation and reference as he travelled. He also made sculpture, producing a small but highly influential group of works. Today, Leighton is perhaps best known for his iconic picture, Flaming June, a vibrant, mesmerising work which has become one of the most reproduced images in the whole of 19th century art. Throughout the various phases and strands of Leighton's career, what remained constant was his meticulous process, founded on his extraordinary skills as a draftsman. Typically, Leighton began with a thumbnail compositional sketch, followed by numerous studies of each figure and their costume or draperies. These studies would then be combined into a single drawing, which was squared up and transferred onto canvas. Closely following the drawn studies, figures were first painted nude in monochrome, with their draperies subsequently added over the top. Finally, colour was applied with reference to a small colour sketch, and the painting completed. Leighton himself described this exacting process as scientific. Some felt his lack of spontaneity was a weakness, but for Leighton, being in control was more than an artistic choice. It was part of who he was. The same rigorous preparation was brought to everything he did, from the creation of his studio house to his role as president of the Royal Academy. Little was ever left to chance. The Royal Academy of Arts was the centre of the artistic establishment. Artists aspired to becoming Royal Academicians, fully aware of the status and commercial success that could follow. Elected an academician in 1868, Leighton fully embraced the life of the institution. demonstrating his conviction that an artist should strive to further the place of art in wider society.
I may own to hope, which has not been much fed by experience, that I might in some way disseminate my artistic faith in this country, where the seed is little and the soil rocky.
When the president, Sir Francis Grant, died in 1878, Leighton was the obvious candidate to replace him. He was duly elected and knighted. He proved to be an exceptionally effective leader, earning admiration for his conduct of academy business and reforms to the academy schools. He also involved himself in public commissions, helped organise international exhibitions, served as the commanding officer of the Artists' Rifles Volunteer Corps, was prominent in campaigns relating to heritage and the arts, and was a great supporter of younger artists.
Of all the presidents of the Royal Academy, from Reynolds to Grant, Sir Frederic Leighton is allowed to be the most brilliant by those most competent to judge.
Such praise did not come without enormous effort on Leighton's part. Over time, the pressure of balancing his public role with his work as an artist took its toll.
I am sometimes asked to speak in public, not only in London but all over the country. And in all cases, the demand is grounded on strong claims insofar as I am an official artist. But I'm a workman first and an official afterwards.
In the face of these demanding commitments, travel became an important escape for Leighton. In addition to annual trips to Europe, he also went to North Africa and the Middle East, first visiting Algeria as a young man, and later travelling to Turkey, Egypt, Syria, and Morocco. These trips were almost always undertaken alone. Behind the celebrity, Leighton was a very private person. Even his friends doubted if they really knew him. Dorothy Dene, Leighton's model and muse for the last 17 years of his life, was perhaps his closest confidant, although the exact nature of their relationship remains uncertain. Was Leighton a father figure, a mentor, or a lover? Whatever their association, he remained unmarried, living alone in his studio house, occupying its single, modest bedroom. Leighton purchased the lease on a plot of land on Holland Park Road in 1864 and commissioned his friend, architect George Aitchison, to collaborate on the design of his new home. Created as a space to live, work and entertain, the house facilitated Leighton's life as an increasingly eminent artist and public figure. Over the next 30 years, it grew into a palace of art, built around his collection of art and artefacts, much of which was acquired on his travels. The Arab Hall, an extension added to the house in the late 1870s, was constructed as a means of displaying his exceptional collection of Islamic tiles assembled over the previous decade.
His house was not designed in a day or built in a year. It has been the work of years. Bit by bit, it has become more beautiful. Its owner has watched it grow up, almost as a father does his boy.
Leighton's house was remarkably public. Magazines and newspapers regularly featured his home, helping to establish Leighton's public persona. He would also give private tours of the house and was at home to callers on Sunday afternoon. Queen Victoria herself came to visit in 1869, remarking afterwards in her journal, "He is most agreeable and gentlemanlike. His house and studio charmingly arranged." Leighton's reputation as a great artist became closely linked to the house he had created. Other artists followed his lead. Soon, a unique group of studio houses sprang up close by. The artistic household at Little Holland House had long since drawn artists to the area. Home to Henry Toby and Sarah Prinsep, the painter George Frederic Watts had come to stay for 3 days in the early 1850s and remained as unofficial artist in residence for over 20 years. Leighton and his neighbour Valentine Prinsep were the first to build studio houses nearby. By the time of Leighton's death, 8 others had been constructed on Holland Park Road and Melbury Road, and many more artists were living in the vicinity, As the press commented,
Lord Leighton's house and studio are notable as the centre of an art colony. A red group of artists' houses, like soldiers or clansmen, loyally closing round their chief.
Each spring, ahead of the Academy exhibition, the artists would open their studios to allow a preview of their latest works. An event known as Show Sunday. Holland Park became a hugely popular destination. The streets lined with carriages as press and public flocked to meet the artists, view their works and look around their homes. In 1883, painter Luke Files recorded almost 700 visitors to his studio in a single day. While these artists were united by their membership of the Royal Academy, the paintings they produced varied greatly, from society portraiture to seascapes, romantic genre paintings to social realism. The most distinctive of the houses was Tower House, built by architect William Burgess for his own use. A fantastical creation inspired by medieval architecture with bespoke furniture and themed rooms. It included Burgess's sea-inspired bedroom, complete with a mermaid chimney piece. Further down Melbury Road, George Frederic Watts went as far as adding a gallery to the side of his house, which could be visited by the public. While the Thornycrofts' home had not one, but 4 studios for all the artistic members of the family. These houses underlined the success of their occupants. A visitor, thinking of commissioning a work or sitting for their portrait, couldn't help but be swayed by the impressive surroundings, allowing the artist to negotiate the highest possible fee. A member of the Holland Park Circle might expect to earn several £1,000s a year at a time when the average wage was less than £50. The last studio house to be completed was for portrait painter James Jabusa Shannon and his family, who moved in next door to Leighton in 1892. Leighton himself continued to extend and embellish his own house until shortly before his death from a heart condition, aged 65 in January 1896. His passing marking the end of the most brilliant years of the Holland Park Circle. Leighton's coffin was first placed in his studio before being taken to the Royal Academy, where he lay in state. His funeral was held at St Paul's Cathedral, where he was interred in the crypt next to the cathedral's architect, Sir Christopher Wren. The scale and grandeur of the funeral and the accompanying coverage in the national and international press was unprecedented for an artist, revealing how far Leighton had succeeded in placing his profession at the centre of national life. A prominent memorial by the sculptor Thomas Brock was erected in the cathedral's north aisle, where it remains today. Following Leighton's death, an attempt was made to preserve his house and all its contents. The effort failed, and his collections were sold through Christie's auctioneers. The house itself was inherited by Leighton's 2 sisters, Augusta and Alexandra. They cooperated with neighbour Emily Barrington to establish it as a centre for the arts. In 1927, ownership passed to the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. But, like so much of the art, architecture and design of the Victorian era, it fell deeply out of fashion, becoming a shadow of what it had once been. Only since the 1980s have a series of projects restored the interiors, with objects from Leighton's collections gradually returning to their original setting. Today, all but 3 of the Holland Park Circle studio houses still survive, but Leighton's is the only one open to the public, allowing a unique insight into the wealth, celebrity and prestige that successful artists enjoyed in the later 19th century. A status that Frederic Leighton did so much to bring about.